This episode of the Leap Forward podcast is brought to you by Bridge LT, leaders in conversational learning and innovation. Through AI role plays, technical simulators, and comprehensive training programs, Bridge LT is revolutionizing the future of corporate and enterprise education.
Today on Leap Forward, we're joined by Jeremy Evans, founder of Marketing Delivery, who shares his journey from launching a marketing company to growing a tech powerhouse. Jeremy dives into the evolution of automotive customer engagement, the rise of data-driven automation, and the pitfalls of tech for tech's sake trends. With years of hard-won lessons and practical insights, he offers a roadmap for dealers navigating today's digital chaos. Ready to rethink your strategy?
I'm really delighted to welcome to this edition of Leap Forward, Jeremy Evans. Jeremy, thank you for joining us.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So let's get straight into it. Give us a bit of an introduction.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about the business and your value proposition and the role you play.
Yep. So Marketing Delivery is the business. I set it up in 2007, and it's not the business I set up. So I joke that I set up a marketing company. I've accidentally ended up running a tech company. So the business was set up to work with kind of smaller dealerships who had maybe a database coordinator, possibly a marketing manager, but no real network of marketing help and support. And we would be the outsourced marketing department, akin to the kind of things that some of the manufacturers do with their dealer marketing services, but for those dealers that regardless of franchise, what they wanted to do. That was in 2007. We quickly went into global recession, and that kind of offering didn't really cut it anymore. But what was coming through and becoming apparent was that there was an appetite in dealers to know how to use tech to help them with their business. Early days of email marketing, you had Boots Advantage Card, you had Tesco Club Card, you had Amazon sending emails to consumers, and dealerships saying to me, how do I do that with my customers? I've got this great database. How do I make more use of that, more effective and efficient use of that, and start to get into people's inboxes? So that kind of was the birth, I guess, of where we are now. So we started taking data from the old lead management systems, the eGood Manners of the times, those kind of first systems that are out there, putting them into a little data hub that used to sit in a Mac mini server on my desk back in the day. And we would then plug that into, off-the-shelf white labeled email marketing software to get things like inquiry management, emails out, and the odd service reminder. And that's that core kind of offering, if you like, is where we're at today, obviously on a much bigger scale. So we now work with over 500 retailers, and our data hub is now in a cloud, on a cloud, at a cloud, where there's a cloud involved somewhere, that the techie guys tell me. And we now have our own email marketing platform, which is a marketing automation platform, really. So it's there's email, there's SMS, there's social media scheduling, all built onto the same platform. We took that decision just pre-COVID to say, rather than keep building little bits of middleware to make the data do what we want to do and pump it into these third-party systems, are we better just building the whole thing ourselves now? So we set about that. I say COVID hit, and that gave us some pause for thought, as all of a sudden car dealers were closed and didn't want to pay for services they couldn't use. So we navigated through that and came out the other side, got back on with the building of our platform, which we christened VoiceBox. That was the project name for it at the time, but we could not come up with anything better as a product name, so it stuck. So the product is now VoiceBox, and now all of our retailers are on it. And we started migrating people over in probably 2022, and then got everybody finally over kind of beginning of last year. The last few switched over, and every new client goes straight onto it. And the idea behind VoiceBox is to pump all the data from all the various sources that dealers have. So they have a lead management system, a dealer management system, an after-sales system or two. They may have some mandated OEM systems that they have to use. We're trying to bring all of that data into the data hub and have almost a single view of that customer and say, what is the most relevant point of contact for that customer next, whether it be managing an inquiry cycle, whether it be a renewal cycle because they've had the car a couple of years, whether it is that service and MOT piece, whether it is that health check follow-up from the work that was identified 3 months ago when they were last in. So the data hub identifies all of those touch points and then generates emails and SMSs out to the end users. But because the data is refreshed every day, it means that we know what's happening with that customer on that part of their journey. So if they do book the car in for service, the messaging switches to, great, we look forward to seeing you on. Have you got any warning lights on? If they don't book, they get another one. They may get a text message. We've built an extension to the VoiceBox product called LeadBox, which is where we had a call center kind of capability where the same data that we use for the emails and SMSs gets dropped into call pots for people in, whether you call them business development centers, call centers, contact centers, whatever the terminology in play, they can use that to phone the customer, but see the history of the emails and SMSs that they've had already, so that they can easily access that customer record and try and bring them back into the business. And that's kind of the core kind of slightly long elevator pitch, if you like, for who we are, what we do, and how we do it. I guess it's the tech that's behind it that makes it sound so simple. But a core part of what we do is work with dealers on their data quality, because it all relies on decent data. When I first started in automotive, was presented with this thing called Kerridge Rev 7 with dot matrix paper printouts and reports for missing information. And now we're doing digital versions of that. So, reports on why haven't you collected a customer email address or got consent to use it? Why haven't you added in the mobile number? Why is the next service due date blank when the car's just been through the workshop? Where we can get data from external sources, things like MOTs, we'll go and get that, bring it in and update it so that we won't believe what the dealer says if we've got an alternative source of it. If we can go to DVLA and find out if the customer still owns the vehicle or not before we start pestering them with service reminders, we will. So it's about that kind of data piece, bringing all those data sources together for a most accurate view of the customer, and then keeping them in touch with that dealership to bring them back in.
Wow, really interesting. And tell me a little bit about I'm imagining, what sounds like an amazing system that's obviously based on a huge amount of experience and expertise of being there in the weeds and, and sort of iterating, and all the scars you carry on you and the team's backs, I guess, right? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So we basically said that we built the system we wish we had 20 years ago when we were all working in dealerships. I remember when I came into automotive, I was in high street retail before I came into automotive. I was a boot store manager when I got my first job in automotive marketing. I took every job, every secondment in Boots to learn as much about the business as I could. And it was around about the time we were launching the Advantage card, which was obviously all about trying to find out what customers were buying and predict their next move. And when I joined automotive, my MD at Bristol Street Bromley, John Troe, did the same thing. Then he put me in every part of the business before letting me loose. So I was able to compare operationally what happened high street wise versus dealer land, systems wise, how things changed and how things were different, to find, I said, this Kerridge system with all these key data fields in it, and half of it was blank or out of date. I couldn't believe it. The millions that high street retailers were spending on loyalty schemes to gather this kind of data, and here we have a system that had space for all of that and just wasn't being used. So back in the day, then it was manual reports. It was, as I said, dot matrix printer being put in the parts van to send to the different dealerships to get people to highlight things and correct things, and manual entry to update things, and a team of people stuffing envelopes with service reminders and making phone calls. It's kind of the same ethos and the same touch points, but updated. As tech updates, we just update what we have, and like I say, it'd be great if we'd have had that. But actually, if we'd had it 20 years ago, nobody would have opened any emails because they wouldn't have understood what they were. But yeah, it's we've really kind of looked at the same problems that we used to have 20 years ago in dealerships, and said, right, how do we? There are less people in dealerships to deal with those problems now, so the tech has got to take a handle on it. There aren't enough sales execs to keep up with the used car stock across a group. There's been lots of consolidation in the market over the last 20 years, so lot less kind of 1 and 2 site dealership groups and more that kind of mid-range 10 to 25 size groups, and the bigger groups have got bigger. So keeping up to date with group stock, keeping up to date with all the various different systems that have been plugged in. We've made it really difficult in dealerships for sales execs to process sales and service advisors to look after the service customers, because there are so many systems that they have to use, so many boxes they have to tick. I was over in the States for the NADA conference in New Orleans earlier in the year, and one of the speakers there was talking about all of these digital systems that have been brought into play over the last kind of 10, 20 years, but the number of car sales per head of sales executive has remained the same. So we're not selling any more cars per head, but we are putting in an awful lot more tech. But that's just because we've made the job far more complicated than it ever used to be. So yeah, we're all about trying to automate as much of this as possible.
Yeah.
So there's the execs, other than lead box for making outbound calls, execs or service advisors don't have to log into anything for us. They have to do their normal job with their normal systems, and we'll pick that data up and do. The algorithms will run. They'll figure out what's due next, and the processes that run in the background will figure out what the customer's going to be contacted with next and how to deal with it. So we're very much about, as we don't want any double keying. We don't want any double entry on stuff. We want the dealers just to do a better job with the systems they've already got, and we'll do the rest. We'll pick up the data and do the rest.
And before we kind of talk about today and looking forward, can you give me a sense of kind of the key moments, milestones, looking back, since you started, that kind of you really see as being seminal in the way that you've kind of evolved the product and the way the industry has moved on?
Yeah, I think we were just talking off air, weren't we, before we started, about the fact that the industry is almost in a constant crisis, constant change, and we have to think like a startup, and we're a 17-year-old startup, but the industry's priorities changed, the industry structurally changed, and we have to react to that, and technology is moving along all the time. So we, the biggest seminal decision for us was deciding to go into building the software ourselves. So we went from hosting data and having little bits of middleware built to plug into off-the-shelf systems, to then deciding we were going to become a software company and build our own software. So that was obviously a major moment for us, because I haven't got a background in software. My business partners don't. So it was very much, right, who do we bring in? So we had to go looking for partners to bring in to work with us, to help us. And we went through some pain, and we made some mistakes. We've ended up with a cracking system, by my own admission, but and by our clients that work with us. But yeah, we went through some ups and downs to get there. But that was probably the biggest decision we made, was to become a software company and start building that software so that we could easily keep up to date. So if we had an opportunity with a retailer to say, look, if you had this, we would work with you, we could make that choice, whether there was enough value proposition in that to build it, deploy it, and see the benefit of it. And that's what the lead box call management platform came from. That there was an opportunity with a sizable dealer group that if we had something which was better than the system they had at the minute, they would come with us. So we built it, they came to us, and we've won a bunch more business off the back of having it as well. So being a software company gives us that flexibility, and it just means that we can kind of plot our own path and make our own choices, rather than be at the behest of another software company where we're using somebody else's train set, and they decide what they do with it.
Fascinating. Tell me more about sort of the impact that your customers see from kind of your product.
So we obviously, we're a digital platform, so we can measure everything, and return on investment in automotive is key. You won't stick around long if you can't show return on investment. But the really great things, elements that we can show, are, one of our email steps is we call it stock alerts, where we take used car stock feeds and match them against open inquiries, and keep those customers up to date with new cars that come into stock or changes in price. We can show that about 10% of the customers who receive those messages buy a car. And they are open leads that have been open more than 7 days. So they're not a hot to trot lead that has been in your dealership or has been on your website today or yesterday. They are those ones that have maybe decided not to buy that car they were looking for, or more likely they wanted to buy it, but it was sold before they could get there. Because we do see, and again, we measure that, the top demand used cars, I've got maybe 10 or 12 people interested in them, and you can only sell it to one. What happens to those other 11 people? So just our software allows those vehicles to be automatically pumped back out to those people, and we can plot how many of those people go and buy a car. If a sales exec marks a lead as lost on the lead management system, again, we'll follow up that customer and ask them, are they really lost? And again, we can show how many people click that button and say, no, I'm still looking, and then become a new inquiry, go on to place an order. Service retention, again, we can divide that up by all the different age categories of vehicle, whether it's service on its own, MOT on its own, service and MOT combined. We can look at all of that and plot where the retention is and what the levels are and how it's improving. So everything we do really has got to have a kind of so what factor to it. So why are we doing this? So what? What's going to happen next with the messages that go out to the customer, and how are we going to judge if that's a success or not? So you have marketing metrics, you have email open rates, click-through rates, which tell you if the messages you're sending are relevant and are being engaged with. Brilliant. But so what? How many people have bought a car? How many people have booked a service? How many people have clicked to say something that they want a positive action off the back of it? So everything is kind of measured, and those are the key kind of return on investment metrics that we take to a client review. How many cars have we helped you sell, and how many services have we helped you book? Because that's where the value comes from.
Yeah. That's really interesting, and I think it's particularly now as well, I suppose, in a sense, just more than ever in terms of just the massive pressures that everyone is facing right now. That real kind of sense of this is an essential tool to drive and optimize and refine.
If you turn this off, how are you going to replace those sales? Or if you don't have it already, how are you sure that if you've got 6 or 7 dealerships in your group, how do you know that the sales executive sat in Cambridge is looking at stock that's in Ipswich or Bury St Edmunds or Kings Lynn because of that customer that he saw 2 weeks ago hasn't bought a car yet? Reality, the sales exec isn't doing that, but the software is. And the software will deliver it back to the exec at the point in time that either customer click the button that says, I want to have a look at that car. That's when the sales exec gets the alert that says, Mr. Evans is on your website looking at that Alpine or whatever it happens to be, and they can get back in touch. So rather than try and juggle all their open inquiries with all the group stock that they've got, which there's just not enough time, not enough hours in the day of, let the tech do it, and then do a really good job with that customer. It's that blending of the physical and the digital. When that customer's looking at the car again, that's your cue to go and love them to death and do what you do best, and get them back in and make them feel special and buy that car from you. Let the tech deliver you those kind of warmed leads.
Where are we now?
As an industry, we are in a constant state of change. So consolidation in the marketplace, government policy, manufacturing policy, technical infrastructures, EV infrastructures, tariffs. We are in a constant state of change, and the dealer community has to be really resilient and react to that, and be able to handle everything that's thrown at them. So the people working in retailers have to be really resilient and able to just accept the fact that the priorities will change. The priorities are constantly changing in our industry. You add in tech and how quickly tech is moving on top of that, and that's another constant change that's going on, and constant changing of priorities. So for businesses in automotive tech, dealing with both of those, dealing with how our industry is changing and evolving all the time, and how the technology that's available to us is changing and evolving all the time, it's really exciting. It's really interesting. But you really have to be agile. You really have to move with the times, move quickly, and be able to fairly quickly assess what is tech for tech's sake, and what is tech because it's going to improve something for the consumer or the client, i.e. is going to make the job more efficient, more effective, make it easier for them to do something, make it so that they can do more of it, whilst being engaging with the consumer. WhatsApp is a great example of that. So we've looked at WhatsApp. Should we have WhatsApp as well as email and text messaging? Some clients of ours have tried WhatsApp with different platform providers, and have found it's the biggest unsubscribe they've ever had with anything they've done. So they're frantically asking us to take any reference to WhatsApp off anything that we do. And you look at it from a consumer point of view, and you go, okay, there are few bastions of digital privacy left now, where I think I can talk with my family, my friends, the people I choose to, without being interrupted by somebody sticking an ad or a campaign in front of me. WhatsApp is one of those. So you're a brave business if you're the one that interrupts that and sticks your head in there and says, "Hi, look at us. We want to sell you something. I don't want you to sell me something. I want to talk to my golf group, my rugby group, my car group, my family group. That's what I want to use WhatsApp for." And businesses interrupting that are a very brave business, and consumers are not really getting it. Foreign markets, they are. And again, we've talked to businesses in other parts of the world.
Absolutely.
Yep, where WhatsApp is king. everything's got to be on WhatsApp. But UK right now, it's not. So again, it's tech for tech's sake. We'll keep a watching brief, and obviously if that changes, and if the kind of adoption and acceptance of it changes, we'll be there ready for it. But when you've got email open rates at 70%, people are engaging with them and opening them, doing something with them. You see, we see the customer replies. Pet hate of ours is emails from businesses with a no reply email address.
Nuts.
You're basically telling me you want to speak at me, not with me, because I can't reply to you. So all the time we can see people engaging, and those engagement levels are still very strong. Then we keep doing that, but we'll keep an eye on everything else that's happening, because there may well come a time when something else pops up and takes over, and we go, right, we need to be there now.
I mean, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because your basically your product is clearly omni-channel, right? You talked about the physical, the digital, but there's so many different kind of touch points across that customer journey,
and it's important to let the customer decide. Let the customer decide,
right,
rather than try and force them down a digital only, or you can only reply
There's
to.
There's not one way of doing anything.
You have to click here and fill in a form. What if I just want to reply to an email and say, can I bring it in for service next Thursday and have it back by 3:00? What's wrong with being able to just send that reply to a text message? Another pet hate of ours is you get a text message, and if you want to reply, it has to be to a different number than the one that sent you the text.
Send X to 6104 or whatever.
Why can't I just reply? So we're trying to make it easy for the consumer, and make it so that whatever the consumer wants to do, they can do it. If they want to go off to a website and fill in a form, they can. If they want to reply to an email, they can. If they want to reply to SMS, they can. What does a customer want to do? And let's make it easy for them.
I mean, one of many of my pet hates is, and I subscribe to everyone you just listed there, but on top of that is also getting a phone call in the middle of a day from someone telling me that my car's ready, or like, guys, why don't you just send me an email, send me a WhatsApp? The last thing I need is that so we're all different.
Right? It's probably a phone number that you don't recognize, and how many of us answer phones to numbers we don't recognize?
Absolutely. And I think also, you think about sort of, it's horses for courses, right? As well as customer choice. It's also about saying, well, WhatsApp's really good for this, but it's terrible at this.
Send you something that says, like I say, your car's ready, or can we have a chat with you about the health check? Here's a link to the video so you can have a look before you call us. Brilliant. To say, come on down to our sale weekend this weekend, maybe not.
Exactly right. Yeah. And, talking about today and talking about that sort of, tech for tech's sake point, which I think is really interesting. Kind of like, what innovation are you kind of driving, at the moment? What iteration are you driving? Because as you said, we're at this incredible, in a way, like you said, it's kind of exciting, but also very scary at the moment, right? From an economic perspective. And so, it's almost like, wow, that tension, and it often kind of creates some of the great businesses of tomorrow and so forth, right? So it's like, how do you harness that to kind of really drive, innovation? This is evolution in front of us, right? So how are you going about that?
So for us, it's been very much about how we use dealer data and the varying sources, and how we can get clever about using more of that data quicker. So whether that's AI, whether that's algorithms, or whether that's whatever it happens to be, but ways in which we can deliver that data into a usable format that we can then do something with, because dealers, best will in the world, when you've got 4 or 5 different versions of what that customer's up to with their vehicle, it's really difficult for them to see, right, what are we contacting this customer about? What do we want to happen next with it? So making all of those databases kind of sing together, if you like, an overlay. The manufacturer says we have to use that after sales process, but we've got data for people on the dealer management system. We've got a health check system that looks at the last time they came in for service. If we had all of those running independently, the customers would get different comms in different styles with different functions, and they would all fall over each other. So how do we bring those data sets together so that the customer gets a consistent message, consistent style of message, consistent functionality, that if they're used to replying to one of your emails, they don't want to get an email from a different platform that you can't reply to. It all needs to come to one place, and the data needs to work together and kind of really mesh together. So the biggest advances that we've made and continue to make are bringing all those different data sources together, to say, right, where does this sit? Which master set does it sit within, so that we can mesh it into it, so that the customer gets a better experience. Because the better the customer experience, the more likely they are to stay loyal to that retailer, and make it easy. If they're due a service and an MOT and a cam belt change, they don't want 3 messages for that, 2 of which you can reply to, 1 of which you can't. Put it all on one, where they can do everything in one rather than 3 separate things, because the data exists in silos. So we're all about trying to bring that data together as much as possible, overlay it, and understand where that customer is, so that they get the most relevant comms whenever possible. So because that's where we get the better results from.
And you talked about automation, and I've got no doubt that sort of, for you, and kind of like me, I think in a way, it's sort of like, you've been merrily using, AI in the background for many years, right? But obviously it's kind of risen to the kind of the consumer and sort of the top of most people's kind of inboxes and agendas, as it were. And it's a really interesting kind of phase again and stage that we're at now, I suppose, in a sense. But let's talk a little bit more about sort of like how you're actually applying it and using it. Give people a sense of the use cases and the impact of it.
Within marketing departments in automotive, one of the biggest delays is extracting data for campaigns. You either end up with hugely complicated report generator in a native dealer management system, or you have to be a SQL expert to write queries to extract the data you want. So one of the areas we're working on at the minute is a plain language data extract, whereby you type in what you're looking for. So tell me all the Porsche Cayennes due a service in the next 3 months. It will turn that into a SQL query and pull the data out for you and put it there in front of you. Rather than you have to drop down all the different data sets that you can tick a box on and go, if it's in there, if it's not in there, if the date's before then, but after then, and if this, another, and and then when you do get the data, you're still not convinced that you've got the right data because you didn't totally understand which boxes you were ticking. So the piece of work underway at the moment is to turn that into plain language, so that a marketing manager or a marketing exec can just go, right, I want to bring in all of the Touareg owners that bought a car within the last 5 years, because we've got a launch of a new one and we want to invite them in. So they will just type in, bring me back all the Touaregs that have been registered between this year and this year, and the thing will go and do that for them. It will create the SQL and it will bring it back in, and there's your data, Mr. Marketer, because that's the biggest kind of hold up in the process. The next step on from that will be plain language data reporting. So we've got all this data that we currently turn into reports and dashboards like everybody else does, but they're all predefined. Based on somebody wanted this, so we built them a report or a dashboard that said that. What about that plain language that just says, tell me everybody who had a 2011 Ford Focus that came in for service in the last month? There may be a Ford campaign on that somebody wants to run, but if we can do that and say, well, how many of those came back? What is our retention rate on that age of vehicle, that type of vehicle? By typing in, what is my retention rate for vehicles between 7 and 8 years old? Because that might not be one of the predefined pots that are in the dashboard and report, but let's give them a plain language ability to interrogate that data. So for us, they're two of the big things for dealerships in extracting data for campaigns and then reviewing data for reporting afterwards and putting that in kind of plain English.
And then you just roll that forward, right? Because I can see the same thing goes into the marketing automation side. Create a trigger to create a campaign, send an email campaign. That it's all just plain language, straightforward.
That's it. Rather than have to become an expert in system talk and which boxes to tick for it. You try and turn it all into plain language. So for us, that's one of the big benefits of that side of AI that we see. I mean, the beauty of it is we've already got all the algorithms built because we've been doing it for years. So what we can do now is overlay that with some plain language technology as well, and say, right, actually, so the AI training, learning, whatever you want to call it, that's kind of already done because the algorithms are already there. They already exist. What we're now doing is joining that up with what the plain language kind of interpretation of that is, so that it knows which one to select.
And of course, all the while you've had this platform, you're generating millions and millions and millions of data points, right? And then it's like, how do you surface that up to the benefit of your customers?
And again, it's how much do clients want? Because as you said, there is so much data we could give them. What are they going to use? So we see very much our job as being how to distill all of that and say, this is a key piece for you to go and have a look at. This is something that we think you'd be interested in. This is something that is causing us a bit of concern that we think you need to have a look at. So we're very much, yes, we've got some really clever software, but we're very much kind of managed automation, if you like, in that the people who work out and about on my team, I've got automotive backgrounds, they've been there, they felt the pain as well. So, they can interpret all of those data points and go, right, what we're looking for is this, and you need to take a look at that. A client recently, because of the way they internally manage their used cars, didn't want to run the stock alert process across group stock. They only wanted to run it across single site because of internal politics about cars moving between sites. So we did that for them. I advised them not to, but did it anyway for them. And then, of course, 3 months later, we're back there saying to them, your conversion rate is a third of what it should be. So you really should turn that back on and sort out your internal politics, because you're missing out on a big chunk of sales here. And that's the kind of analysis and insight that they would just not be able to find themselves. But we've got the report there for it. We keep an eye on it. We have a look at it, and then we step in and say, you need to have a look at this, and this is what we're seeing. Rather than just give them access to all those data points, it's just like, what can we do with it to make it easy for them to interpret all of that? Because they probably don't have a single view of it in the dealership. They've got 3 or 4 different systems that they would have to pull together and do it. Well, we're already doing that. So let's make that easy for them, and produce that relevant information that says, right, you need to look at this operationally because it's hurting you, or you need to have a look at this in the way your automation runs because it's hurting you, or actually that site's really good. That site's data capture is really good. Its lost sale timings are really good. You can see it's good because they've got more conversions from stock alerts. They've got more lost sale re-engaged. They've got their service retention is better. They're doing a really good job. Operationally, whatever they're doing, replicate that across the rest of your businesses because they've got it. So we can help and work alongside our clients to not just install some clever tech and let it run itself, but interpret it and help them improve it as well.
And as an entrepreneur, as a marketeer turned technologist, where do you see this kind of playing out? What's next in that regard?
I think what's next is there are lots of specialist tech companies within automotive. I think there are lots of legacy big businesses in automotive that maybe don't move as quickly as they could, and then there are smaller businesses like mine who. We're really good at what we do. We don't particularly want to do some of the things that other people are doing, but actually us smaller businesses are really good at working together. So we're really good at saying, well, this is my slice of the pie, but actually it sits next to yours. And actually, if we integrate with you, that's 2 slices of the pie that between us we can cover off for this dealership. So for us, it's very much integration. Who are the other players in the market who we like, who we think are good, we respect, who we have mutual clients with. Let's plug in so that we get the best of both, accepting that there is often a little bit of overlap. Mm-hmm. There's often something that we do that they do as well. Yeah. But actually being big enough to be able to put that aside and go, benefit the client here. Yes, there are a few overlaps, and we'll sort that out between us in terms of who does this one and who does that one. Yeah. But the rest of what you do and the rest of what we do will work really powerfully together. So we're very much about for the benefit of our clients, and we'll sit down with our clients and say, who are you working with? Who are you working with that you think that offering could be enhanced by us integrating with? So whether that is people like a Bumper for payment platforms, whether that is Auto Trader for stock feeds and Deal Builder and that kind of stuff. So, wherever there are systems out there that dealerships are using that we think, there's a customer interaction that would benefit from an integration with that. Let's go and have a look at it and see where we can plug it in.
Yeah, and also there's a customer benefit to that, right? In terms of ultimately creating value for the for your customer's customer, right?
Yeah, that's it, making it easy for them.
Yeah. Really interesting. It's funny you mentioned that because I was going to ask you about the sort of the wider kind of ecosystem, and kind of the role you play in it and so forth. And, being on this podcast is a great example of your kind of, very much kind of open kind of approach to discussing kind of what's going on. But tell me more about kind of like that sort of, that particularly actually from the OEM perspective as well. I'd love to kind of get a bit more of a kind of dynamic around that.
Yeah. I think OEMs are coming to the table a little bit more now in terms of making sure that people play nicely together. We're involved in a couple of OEM tenders at the minute, where previously it may have gone to one business, even though there may be 3 or 4 elements of that maybe that one business was good at a couple of them, but not quite best in class in the others. The OEMs we're talking to at the minute are very much saying, no, if we've got 3 elements and there are 3 different companies and we think they're best in class, we want you to work together to give us the best, which we're more than happy to do. We very much know our strengths, and we very much are happy to play our part in that kind of wider community, if you like, of specialist businesses, whether that is, whether there are BI businesses out there that do it differently or better to us, whether there are businesses who do other kind of other marketing activity that we don't do. We don't do PPC. We don't do Google ads. We don't do any of that. But there are businesses that are really good at that, and we're more than happy to work with them. And if we can pump inquiry data back into those to show attribution and return on investment, we will. So that kind of community of businesses. Of kind of our size or slightly bigger or slightly smaller, I think there's very much an appetite amongst all of us kind of founders and leaders of those businesses to say, you know what, let's work together on this and let's make sure that you plug into us. And we know that we can't often have exclusivity. We know that there may be 2 or 3 companies that we need to work with in that space because our clients are using 2 or 3 different suppliers, and we're very open and upfront about that and saying, look, what we're going to do for you, we're also going to do for theirs. But it just makes it stickier for you where you are and for us where we are, and better for our clients. So they've got it all in kind of one joined up place rather than scattered all over the place.
What's your kind of perspective on the more kind of international side of the market? Give me your views on that.
Yeah, so we're not international yet. No. We're UK, but we do look overseas to see what's going on. So
you said you were over at NADA.
Yeah,
right?
So I've been over to the NADA the last couple of years. Pre-COVID, I used to go to the digital dealer conferences. Great way to take the family to Florida off the back of a business convention, and actually our social stock kind of Facebook stock ad process and product really came from one of those conferences. We saw what was happening in the States in probably 2017, and went, that's interesting. How do we do that over here? Obviously they had access to consumer data that we wouldn't have over here, although that's closing down quite rapidly over there as well. But there were elements of that we could do and pull together. And I remember sitting in an Orlando convention room phoning the office in Tunbridge Wells to say, got an idea. We've just heard someone, and could you go and have a look at this and see what's possible? Talk to our Facebook account manager, talk to our techie guys and see what they think we can do with this. And by the time we came back, there was an outline of what we could do, and we put a product together from that. So we do very much look at what's happening in other parts of the world to see where our clues are. WhatsApp is a great example of that. Feedback from overseas that it's working really well, but in the UK, maybe not quite adopted as of yet. But maybe it's about finding the sweet spot of where it will work. We take influences from overseas. Companies like Techion that are looking at the UK seriously, who have really taken the US by storm in a really short space of time. How do we become part of that? Because if they're going to take the UK by storm like they have in the States, maybe some of the existing DMS providers that are out there are looking over their shoulders at them thinking, Techion are coming. We need to partner with them. We need to be able to partner with all of them. We can't show too much preference because we need to take data from all of them. But actually, if they're coming in, we need to know that they're coming in and be ready for it. And they have open APIs, which we've got access to and had a look at. So it's all about just keeping our eyes and ears open about what's maybe coming over the horizon, from whether it's from the States, whether it's from somewhere else, just to see, okay, how will that affect us? We've also got overseas businesses buying dealer groups in the UK. So, we have a client who's now owned by a Dutch dealer group.
Right.
We have clients who are now owned by US dealer groups. So, that again is something that we need to be aware of and understand. What are they going to do? Are they going to bring their suppliers with them? Do they have a global supply that is going to mean a change their end? So we're very much aware of that kind of consolidation and inward investment into this part of the market as well.
Or is there an opportunity for you to flip that, right?
Correct. Yeah. So if the Dutch people get to understand what we do and like it, is there an opportunity for us to then go over to Holland, Belgium, Germany, where they've got a big representation? So.
And when you look at sort of the UK, and sort of almost benchmark it in terms of what you're doing here versus elsewhere in the world, obviously there are local differs's and nuances, and appreciate the sort of that, but kind of like how advanced are we here? What how would you, if you were giving us a report card as a nation in this regard?
I think in terms of I think we're quite ahead of the game in terms of the European game. Certainly from what we've seen of the European businesses that are out there and European dealer groups that I said we have affiliations with through businesses that have bought UK businesses, they're not doing the kind of stuff we're doing, and they don't have that level of data integration as well. So I think we're ahead of the game from a European perspective. I think we're on our game when it comes to the US. There are a couple of companies in the US doing something similar to what we do, and they seem to have some decent traction in the marketplace and are talking the same kind of language that we talk. There's a flood in the US of AI branded businesses. How AI they are, is that is that artificial intelligence? Is it algorithmic intelligence? Is it another definition of AI? And what is it? Is it a chatbot that's been rebranded as an AI assistant? So I think cutting through some of the noise and the marketing speak for what is actually happening, what is the system. But again, you've seen a bit of consolidation over there. So there's a company called Outsell in the US that kind of do what we do over there. Slightly, there are some differences, but very similar outlook. They've been acquired by Impel over there, who are in the UK looking at kind of AI and running some AI projects in the UK, and we're working with them with a couple of mutual clients out there as well. So there's a bit of consolidation happening over in the US, where some smaller businesses that have popped up specialising in areas are now kind of joining forces. So like I spoke about the community over here, where we work nicely together. Will that happen over here? Will one of us break ranks, find a load of VC money and go and buy some of the others and plug them in together? I guess that's potentially something that could happen. And it's certainly there's something that we've kind of looked at and seen happening over in the States, where smaller specialist businesses have joined forces or been acquired by other businesses that have a crossover, work well together, but actually think the best way to do it is to be as one. So
bit of a roll up.
Yeah, bit of a roll up. So we've seen a little bit of that in the UK with some providers, but is there more of that to come? Yeah, potentially.
Let's talk just briefly about skills.
Yep.
And capabilities and learning and development. Give me some of your perspectives on that.
So we very much try and grow our own talent. Very much a believer in that. One of the most satisfying things for me is when we promote internally. Rather than have to recruit. When you interview somebody, they only give you their best answers, and you don't know until they've worked for you for 6 months whether they lived up to the hype or not. And by that time, you've paid a recruiter thousands, and then you find out whether the person's any good or not. Whereas somebody you promote internally has put the work in, and you know what they're capable of. So we're very, very big believers at Marketing Delivery in bringing talent through where we can. We also are not afraid to bring in external talent. Typically, that's people that we know and we've seen and we know a little bit more about, and it's not a CV and an interview and a bit of a punt. It's somebody that has worked with us as a client before. So a number of my team have been clients of ours and have jumped across. In fact, my managing director Charlotte was a client of ours when she was at JCT 600. One of my senior account manager, again, she was a client of ours and then came to join us. So we have people that we know, trust, and understand their expertise that have joined the business, and then we very much try and grow our own talent internally as well. And that's hard because obviously we built the software, so everybody gets to learn it. But then how do you bring the application of software? So learning a system, a skill base, that's one set of training. How you develop that knowledge of lifting your head up and applying that, understanding what good looks like, what advice to give the clients. So, our most junior account execs will go out to meetings with our clients, with the account manager. Not all of them, but they will go to sit there, listen, learn, understand, ask questions, make notes to improve their understanding of the application of our software and what results dealers are seeing and what questions they're asking, so that when their account manager's on holiday the next time and a client pings in with an email, they haven't got to say, can that hold off till Claire's back? They can go, oh yeah, I can answer that. Or I'm comfortable asking that, or I know somebody else who I can ask about that.
Or you just understand the question.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah. So that's really important to us. How we bring those people on. That comes with its risks because you can get people ready for the next step before the business needs anybody at that level. And there has been time when people have been ready and we've had to sadly say, we haven't got anything for you. We're happy for you to stay and maybe we'll give you a little bit of money to make you want to kind of hold on for a little bit longer, but it's not that step up you're looking for. And they've gone, well, I can get that step up if I go somewhere else. So every now and then we have to sadly wish people well, and we joke they're dead to us when they're gone, but some of them have come back. I guess that's the risk you take. I'd rather have the benefit of having a bunch of people kind of approaching, being ready for that job, and maybe lose the odd one when we're not able to offer them anything because we don't need it at that time. But knowing that the next crop are kind of getting to the point where they will be ready when we do need it. I guess the mantra really is kind of if you work hard, we'll work hard for you. We won't. People ask for pay rises, rarely get them. People who do a great job are the ones that get promotions, get the pay rises, and there's a you get the kind of adverts for signs, motivational signs that you stick up on the wall. I think my favourite one is "Nobody cares, work harder," because that's the mantra, isn't it? Really, it's nobody's got any entitlement. I'm not entitled to where I've got to. Our business isn't entitled to work with the clients that we work with or anybody new. They don't care. We have to work hard to show them how good we are, and then they'll believe in us. And it's the same with our people. If you work hard, we can teach you, we can develop you, we can train you, we can help you, but it has to come from within. You have to have that drive to work hard and want to do it. And yeah, we'll work with you alongside you when you do that.
And lastly, if you were to be listening to this conversation and let's just say you're working in a dealership right now, with all the challenges that we're all facing right now, what would be your kind of advice to that person right now?
I guess wherever possible, just take a pause and take a look up. Because it's really easy to get into that kind of tunnel vision of what's on my desk now, the emails that come in now, the pressure I'm under now, the headlines I'm hearing now. That ability to pause, look up, and talk to other people in the industry, because we're all in the same boat. People are doing their best, and some people's best is better than others, and some people are accepting more help than others. So not being afraid to ask for help from other businesses and from other people, and making that time to stop, look up, have a breath, see who's doing what either in your business or in other businesses around you. Because if you have an issue in your business, bet your bottom dollar a colleague in another business has had the same issue. What are they doing about it? Make time to talk to people about who they're working with, what they've done about these situations, because we are all in it together. Yes, in dealership land, we fight tooth and nail for every deal, but we're all in it together. We are all in the industry together, and pause, look up, talk to each other, I think is the best advice.
Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today.
That's been really good, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Likewise.